I'm joined now by two-time Emmy and Grammy Award winner, two-time best-selling author, holder of the Guinness Book of World Records for most comedy specials across any network, and currently touring comedian, Kathy Griffin. Hi, Kathy.
Mark, I'm so glad to talk to you, and I'm so glad to be doing shows in Canada because you people never canceled me.
And it's so great to hear that you're finally back on the road. I mean, you've performed
Honey.
in more than 24 cities already. And you've been talking about this for ages. How badly you wanted to get back on the road. How's it been?
Oh my gosh, it feels like home. I know that sounds corny, but when I'm on stage, it feels like home, and that's what I missed. I mean, because of a photo I took with the president that he didn't like, to then not be able to just do what I do and go town to town with my bag of jokes and my stories and my celebrity stories and my mishaps, and to be able to talk about even having PTSD, which I know sounds silly, but what can I say? I do. And I make fun of all the treatments that I have for it because you just got to laugh at all of it. And so it's been almost 7 years since I'm back on tour. And I love the My Life on the PTSD List tour. I'm having a blast.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so much in what you just said that I want to spend the next couple of minutes unpacking with you because for some reason, if somebody somehow didn't know, catch us up on what happened back with the whole Trump mask affair, because it seems like that's really where a lot of this sort of Kathy Renaissance started in a lot of ways, was with that incredibly challenging time for you. Talk
I
to us a
think
little
you're
bit about
right.
that ride.
No, I think you're right. So almost 7 years ago, if you've been like living under a rock, maybe you haven't seen it, but I took a photo of holding a Halloween mask of Donald Trump with ketchup all over it to make it look bloody, and people lost their minds. And that photo was taken by Donald Trump and the administration, including the Attorney General, and it was spread everywhere from North Korea to Russia to China, around the world within hours. They were calling me the face of ISIS. I was put on the no-fly list. I was put on the Interpol list. I was in the middle of a 50-city tour, 25 cities in, and all 25 of the remaining cities were canceled because of bomb threats or death threats. And the MAGA people are crazy. I know you guys had your trucker convoy people. So imagine having like a third of our voting population think like that. It's like nothing I've ever seen. I'm 63. I've been a comic for decades. I've made fun of every president. It's called punching up, by the way. I mean, if you can't make fun of the president, then who the hell can you make fun of? But this particular one, who I have a history with, I know the Donald. I've known Donald for decades. He would show up at the opening of an envelope. When I was at Bravo, owned by NBC Universal, he was doing The Apprentice. So I would run into him there. He always wanted a picture with me. There's pictures of me and Donald Trump online. He hired me one time even to roast him during an episode of the regular non-celebrity apprentice, paid me $50,000. And I went, to his golf course, which is where they had the event. And so I didn't know he was this bad. I just thought he was a buffoon. Like in New York, he was just a joke. But I didn't know he really had presidential aspirations. But I certainly didn't know my fellow countrymen would vote for him. And then, even from the jump of his campaign, much less his presidency, I really thought, and you can definitely make fun of me for this, I thought when I took that picture, people would be behind me. In particular, women would be behind me. He's such a misogynist. And nope, the cheese stood alone. So I was fired from CNN New Year's Eve. Everybody was making statements about me, about how I'll never work again. And American service members were going to be beheaded because of me. And they were going to put me in ISIS training videos, which they never did. And so, believe it or not, the fallout from that photo still lives on. Like, I have had protests at some of my shows on this tour even. And you got to laugh because they're just pitiful. They're people that have those like giant Trump 2020 flags. And there's one poor bastard, he was waving it, and he looked older than me even. And I gotta be honest, I felt bad for the guy. He kept waving this big Trump 2020 flag and telling people not to go inside the theater. And they were just flipping him off and taking pictures of him. And I mean, at a certain point, you gotta laugh. So then after that happened, I lost a ton of my friends. I lost most of my friends. I became addicted to prescription pills. I then tried to take my life. I then was on a 5150 psych hold for 3 days, which actually ended up being a good thing because I got into recovery. I'm sober now 3 years and 10 months. But a year after I got sober, I got diagnosed with lung cancer, even though I never smoked. So they took out half my left lung. Half my left lung is just gone. It's somewhere in a dumpster at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. And I'm cancer-free, but I was injured during the surgery. So I have a permanently paralyzed left vocal cord. So my voice is a little bit altered. That's when I got really sick. And I think that's when the PTSD kicked in, because I feel like I lost my voice creatively because of the Trump scandal. And then I literally lost my voice. So believe it or not, this is more voice than I've had for a while, because I've had like 5 surgeries on my cord since then. But the audiences have been loving and forgiving and accepting this kind of new voice I have that I'm kind of self-conscious about. But in the new show, believe it or not, I don't even mention Trump. I don't mention him once. Okay, if he does something, if he farts in court, that is gold. That is comedy
Have to stay
gold.
current.
I mean, currently farting in court. That is genius. And I get to be on tour, and I get to be going to Canada, and that part is schadenfreude like I could have only dreamed of. But he's also still somehow the Republican frontrunner. So we'll see what happens. And I know it's kind of crazy that after the scandal, I'm back out there in an election year when he's the Republican nominee. But I'm out there anyway because something just lifted. I don't know if it was a certain amount of time had passed since the photo, but it's almost like America started to forgive me. And I know that sounds corny, but like all of a sudden I got a call from a manager. And he said, I think you got a raw deal with that Trump thing. I think you should be back out there earning a living. They shouldn't have taken your right to earn a living. And that meant everything. So he got me an agent, and then an agent routed 40 cities in 2 weeks. So I am so grateful that you guys are hosting me and having me, and I get to be on stage in my beloved Canada. And I'm going to make fun of you guys right to your faces. You're not safe either. But I love doing it, and every show is different. It's very improvisational. It's very inappropriate. Don't bring the kids. For God's sake, leave the kids at home. But hopefully I'll give you a good chuckle.
Well, you've already been in Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, I believe. You've got Ottawa, Toronto, London,
Oh, wait.
Ontario coming
Somebody
up.
gave me a t-shirt in Edmonton, a fan, and it says, I'm still in Edmonton, which I love about Edmonton. They're making fun of themselves being stuck there. I wear that t-shirt all the time. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I love that. That's amazing. And it's very Canadian, I think, that self-deprecating kind of humor. But,
Yes.
we're a very friendly country, I think, a very welcoming country. But like you said,
Yes.
you lost most of your friends when all this came out. I think I read somewhere else that you said you
Yes.
lost like 90% of your friends. So, one
Yes.
of my favorite things to do now, one of my guilty pleasures, I'll admit, is that I go through your Instagram and I love looking at your pictures of your dinner parties, your salons that you host
Oh,
in your home.
the
So it's
salon
just like,
parties are heaven.
but so what have your friends been like through this process? Your real friends, the ones that didn't abandon you throughout all of this.
Well, the good news is the friends I have now, I know are true friends because they are people that either came into my life saying, hey, I've been watching that Trump thing from the sidelines, and I think you got a raw deal. And it kind of starts there because, to be honest, I can't really be friends with a Trumper. And I don't mean that I don't have friends that voted for him, I do. But I have found that Trumpers are not able to contain themselves in my presence. Like, they just lose it and they get in my face and they want to talk about how he's fighting child trafficking, and then you get into the QAnon people. And so it's not that I'm trying not to have friends. It's just that he's a candidate unlike any other I've seen in my lifetime. And so I admit most of my friends are Dem, lefties, commies. I'm kidding. We're not actual commies, but that's what the Republicans call us. And I have these salon parties because one thing that really has gotten me through my investigation and the DOJ coming down on me and all that stuff is just gathering a group of people. It can be 4. I have up to 12. That's as many as my table can have. And I have these parties where I'm very strict and I make people dress up because they behave better. And I say no phones at the table. And that's key because we're all looking at our phones and we're getting to know negative things on social media more than our actual friends. And so no phones at the table. I have it catered. I have place cards and I cast it like a play. So I intentionally put someone next to someone they wouldn't typically meet. And everybody goes around the table and they say a little bit about themselves. I call it giving your bona fides. And I make even the celebrities do it. And people actually get to know each other. And the meal is great. And sometimes the meal has a theme. You don't have to have it catered. You can order pizza. I don't care. But just get back to talking. And by the end of it, we're all on a text chain together, and these text chains go on for months because you feel like you have new friends, not just somebody you said hi to once at a party, you didn't really catch their name, and then you move on. People really open up, and so I usually film a couple minutes for my social media and show people, but I hope more people do it, and I hope the idea spreads.
Now, you've also shared your family life very openly, of course.
Yeah.
My life on the D list, your lovely mother. But, it seems like just watching your life from the outside for so many years, your older brother, Gary, died of cancer in 2014.
Yeah.
2017, your sister, Joyce, died of cancer.
My sister died of
2020, your
cancer,
lovely
and
mother
my
died,
brother died of
right?
cancer. I know. It's been
So
rough, and my
let's talk
mom
about
died during
let's talk about
COVID, so I
the
couldn't have a memorial.
during that. So, I mean, just that much loss all at once, really, or over a couple of years like that. I mean, how
Yeah.
do you navigate that kind of grief when you've also, I don't know, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but I feel like the whole country hates you in a way, like
Oh,
that
no,
feels
the
so
whole country hated
isolating.
me. Let's not get it twisted. Left, right, and center. The Democrats came after me. My own friends came after me. Jane Fonda, the great Jane Fonda goes, "Kid, this is going to be on your tombstone." And she was right, and she ought to know. And she's been a pal. I have been reaching out to certain people that have really been through the fire. I went over to Sharon Stone's house and cried on her shoulder because I'm getting divorced on top of everything else. And, it's the kind of friends that will say, "Come on over. I get it. You're hurting." And I want to be that person. So I love it if somebody calls me and says, "Can I come over? I'm feeling lonely today or I'm feeling shaky." I'm like, "Yeah, come on over. We'll play with the dogs. We'll hang out." And so it has to go both ways. But you can tell your friends when they're the ones that actually show up. And so that's how I've narrowed it down. So I don't have as many friends, and that's okay. But I feel like the ones I have now are solid, and that's kept me going. And remember, most of my friends knew my mom, so they felt it deeply too when my mom passed away. And I just wanted to say my life on the D list is in Canada, available on Amazon. You have to purchase it. Sorry about that. And don't worry, I'm not getting a dime. But please watch it and rediscover it, if nothing else but for my mom and dad, because they were so freaking funny.
It seems like they had, your mother especially had just sort of a natural kind of humor, a lot
Oh,
like
yeah.
you. How
No,
has
my
that helped
mom
you
was
just being
real.
able
Let me
to,
tell you, there was no
yeah.
scripting my mother. Like some of these reality shows nowadays where they give them scripts, good luck giving my drunk mother a script. I would have loved to see them try. When the camera was on, she just was herself. And I love when people say, "I feel like I knew your mom," because I say you did. She was just the same way on and off camera. And that's why my parents were so good on the show, because they were just themselves.
Yeah, I'm curious how maybe that kind of inherited improvisational, funny outlook on the world, how has that helped you to cope with all of this grief and trauma and difficulty that you've been through? Has that been helpful?
It's been helpful because I was trained in the Groundlings Improv Group, and it's a great company. I actually just did a fun surprise show there last night. It's very solid, and I had years of improv training. I then became a teacher at the school, and believe it or not, that improv training is good for you across the board, and it teaches you to be able to make a left turn when you didn't think you would have to, or a right turn when you didn't think you would have to. And my act is very improvisational. I don't know exactly what I'm going to say. The audience doesn't know exactly what I'm going to say, and they can feel it. And that's kind of how I go through my life. I mean, I plan stuff to the extent that I have to, but I've been through so much crap. I'm open for anything. I mean, I have a breath work class today because apparently I forgot how to breathe. Okay, whatever. I don't know if it's going to help, but it's not going to hurt. And so, with this PTSD nonsense, I had to be open to doing acupuncture and cupping and EMDR therapy where I hold buzzers in my hands to help rejigger my brain so that I can be more myself. And so I do whatever it takes. I take a lot of advice from smart people, and I'm never above taking advice. I always love doing it.
I recently heard Jerry Seinfeld say that in one of his newer interviews that it's difficult to be married to a comedian because sometimes the downside of being funny and using comedy is that you avoid sort of the harder stuff. And I don't know, you mentioned that you are going through or have went through a divorce as well. Do you think there are downsides to being just naturally funny, looking on the bright side to other people who maybe can't handle that?
Look, I think Jerry's avoiding the harder things in life because he has 700 million reasons. So he's got $700 million. That might help. But he did tell me, though, that he married his wife because she's a good laugher. So one thing I will confess to is that I'm not proud of this, but I do try out material on my friends when they think I'm just having a conversation. So I use trickery. So if I have a friend over, if I'm having a dinner party or a couple of friends or I attend a dinner party or whatever, I'm going to try some stuff out because that's the way I've always done it. I'm old school. I have my method. I still bring my ridiculous comedy notebook on stage with me. It's got like 8 bullet points, which is 2 hours, if not more. And I put it on a table next to me. I don't even look at it. It's like a security blanket, but that's just how I think. So I'm always writing in my head, and I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and write something on a cocktail napkin, whatever it takes. I'll put something on my phone, but I'm kind of always writing. And I admit I'm very on, like I'm not that different from this.
I mean,
Sorry.
do you think are you like mother then? Is this the real Kathy Griffin, or is this
This is
an
pretty
act?
real. I mean, I'm doing an Instagram live while I'm doing this, and we have a whopping 185 people, which I think is kind of D-list. I think if I was Selena Gomez, there'd be like 20 million people, but I'm just glad to be here. Hi, everybody. I'm just glad to be here and be working, and I do have fun promoting the shows because it gets me out of my head. If I wasn't doing
Yeah.
this with you right now, who knows? I could be spiraling. I can't leave myself alone for 1 minute. So I'm always thinking of putting on the hustle. I'm getting ready for a show. I have a show tomorrow night in Indianapolis, and I'm doing show after show. And on my days off, I get bored. So I'm just happiest when I'm
Mhm.
working, and my mind is always turning, thinking of the new celebrity I can torture or the new thing I can twist and make it funny.
Kathy, you mentioned sort of getting out of your head, and I think that's a big part of recovery from PTSD and trauma and the treatment of it. So, to ask you, is that your a diagnosis that you received, or is that just something or
Yeah.
is that something that you
I
use
was
to describe your own
diagnosed with
experience?
PTSD. I was diagnosed
Mhm.
by my psychiatrist and my oncologist. And I think what happened
Okay.
was after my cancer surgery, where they took out my lung but injured my cord, I got so sick. This is gross, but I couldn't stop vomiting for like 10 months. And I got down to 87 pounds and I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even watch TV because it hurt. And they said that's PTSD. And I think it was the surgery for my lungs being kind of a little bit
Mhm.
botched that put me over the edge. And I think my body just went, okay, we're done. We can't handle anymore. So after that horrible dark time, I got a team of people to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And so I do all the stuff, like I said, the breath work, the Kundalini yoga. I don't even know who Kundalini is. I don't know if it's a person, and I don't care. I just do what the lady tells me. And then sometimes I will make a potion. Get this. So one of the ladies who's like very woo-woo, she comes to my house and we do yoga. So she brings me raw cacao that she got from a jungle in Costa Rica. And she says I'm supposed to make it in a saucepan with water. And I shave the cacao and I have to stir with intention. I'm from Chicago. We don't stir with intention. I don't even know what that hell mean. What the hell that means. I just stir until the stuff is melted. Do I do it? Yes. I admit it. I took cacao from the jungles of Costa Rica, made it into some sort of hot chocolate. Oh, but you have to add a lot of maple syrup, which is the food of your people. So when I'm in Canada, I might commit a felony and try to steal some maple syrup. Shh, don't bust me.
I don't think you have to steal it. I think they have it at the duty-free shops. It's pretty accessible.
Oh, why didn't you tell me? I thought I was going to be back on the no-fly list.
No, you don't have to commit an international offense, I assume.
No more
But
international incidents.
that label though, that PTSD label, has that been helpful in any way to you in sort of packaging or understanding finally what you've been going through?
Well, in a way, it's been helpful because the minute I got it, I thought of the title, My Life on the PTSD List for the tour, not even knowing that the D list was going to be available for purchase on Amazon this week. So I had no idea they were going to throw it up there. And I think in a way it kind of writes itself, but I just want the audience to know I'm going to make fun of myself going through this, and I hope it's okay for you guys to laugh at yourselves too, whether it's cancer or addiction or PTSD. And by the way, I just want to say, I kind of feel like America has kind of a collective PTSD from the craziness of COVID and Trumpism. Trump used to tell us to drink bleach. He said you should drink bleach to cure COVID. I mean, that'll give anybody PTSD. And then there's people that have, they call it, UT, urine therapy. Some of these Trumpers think they should drink their own urine if they get COVID. I mean, what the hell's going on? So that may not be PTSD, but it sounds good and crazy to me, so I'll make fun of it.
I feel like I should also remind people, our viewers and listeners, that we don't provide medical advice on this conversation on this show. So don't do any of those things.
Advice.
Talk to your doctor. Yeah.
Talk to your doctor, not Dr. Donald Trump.
Kathy, you're going to be in Ottawa at the Meridian Centrepoint Theatre on the 7th, North York, Ontario, Toronto, Ontario, that still counts as Toronto, at the Meridian Arts Centre on the 8th. I'm going to be at that one. I couldn't get front row. They're all almost sold out, it turns out. I got in row C, though.
Oh, I love that.
London, Ontario. I should be able to see it. London, Ontario at Centennial Hall on the 9th. Thank you so much for taking this time to chat with me, Kathy. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, thanks, Mark. You're a doll. I really appreciate it. I'll see you at the show.
Take care.